Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Muslim Marriage Experience. I'm Brother Q, and I'm sitting here with Muhammad M, and he's going to give us a little bit of, just tell us a little bit about his own marriage experience and give us just a few points of advice about how the process should go. So, tell us a little bit, tell us about yourself briefly and how you got married.
All right. Well, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, I got married when I was 22 years old, and my wife and I were both born and raised in the U.S., and both of our parents were also born and raised in Lebanon. So we've had similar backgrounds, alhamdulillah. I got married, like I said, when I was 22, but I wanted to get married as soon as basically I started college, which I think is what a lot of people want to do, but due to their situation with school or financially, a lot of people don't do that. Also, maturity is a very important part as well. And alhamdulillah, I'm now 28. I'm been married over 6 years now, or almost six
Inshallah.
years. We have two kids, and alhamdulillah, life is great.
Awesome, awesome. So, just real quickly about the maturity thing. Do you feel that you were mature enough to get married?
The truth,
Yeah. So, okay, let me make it more specific. You said as soon as you got to college, you wanted to get married. Is that what
correct,
you said? So you entered college when you were 18 years old.
correct,
So at 18 years old, you felt that you wanted to get married.
absolutely.
Absolutely. But okay, at 18, did you feel you were mature enough to be married? At 18,
Of course, I thought I was.
you thought. Okay, looking back, at an 18-year-old you, did you feel that you were ready at 18 years old?
Nah,
No.
no, not at all.
So what else? What other preparation did you need? This is also part of. This is all part of the first question. What other preparation was necessary for you to, uh, you know, feel that you were ready to get married in general?
Good question. It's hard to really put your finger on one single thing, but I think if I had to kind of try and say something in a comprehensive way or kind of name one thing that covers a lot of it, it would have to be responsibility. So I did live at home during college. I was fortunate enough to go to a nice university where my parents actually lived in the same city as that university,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a good life, and I would say, a mature 18-year-old. But in terms of responsibility, I really haven't or hadn't developed what it means to you know I hadn't developed the responsibility on my own that would be equal to having the responsibility that's required whenever you're married.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gap would have been too big to bridge
Mm-hmm.
if I did get married at that time.
Okay. So when you got married, did you feel that you were ready? Financially. So for me, the main things, two of the main things. Well, okay. There's my four principles for someone that wants to be married, wants to get married. At least for a man. Do you have a job? Do you have a place to live? Do you have any kind of weird habits that you do on your own? And is there anything physically that's going to prevent you from, physical, I guess, issues that you may have that prevents you from getting married, right?
Hmm.
Do you feel like you had all those four things when you got married at 22?
When I got married, yes, but when I actually proposed or we got engaged, I didn't. I didn't have a job at the time, and of course, I didn't really have a place to stay either because I was still in college, and so as I said, I was living at home. But I had a pretty good resume, and I showed my future family to be that resume, and I told them, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to get a job, inshallah. And they saw the resume, and I told them my history, my internships and stuff, and they were very confident as well. Their priority was not just financial security, but also me as a person, and they, alhamdulillah, they saw that, and so they were able to accept and move forward.
Hmm. I just want to repeat something that you said there, which I think is very important. That yes, you didn't have a job. However, you had a plan for the future, and you
Absolutely,
demonstrated to them that hey, I don't have a job right now, but it's highly likely I will get one because of one, two, three, four, five. Not just
absolutely,
I don't have a job. I don't know when I'm going to finish my degree. Please marry your daughter to me, right? Something like
absolutely.
that. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so let's we're done with the first question there. Let's move on. Um, were there any surprises during the marriage process? So, okay, I'm assuming you someone introduced you to your current wife, to your this is your only current and only wife.
Hmm.
Astaghfirullah.
Yeah,
someone introduced you to her, and you proposed. Okay, so as that was going on, were there any surprises?
Oh, absolutely. So, and this kind of goes. This ties back into the first question about responsibility and me being ready for marriage. Whenever you are kind of a growing Muslim and you're studying the Deen, then you realize, especially in college, you have this grand vision of getting married and this grand vision of how you think it's going to work out. And I admit I had that naive vision in mind. And I think a lot of people have that, unfortunately. We tell ourselves all the time that we don't believe in the Hollywood narrative. But deep down inside, it's a lot harder to unroot or remove that narrative or that expected narrative from our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's really more ingrained than we think it is. So I had that in the sense that I thought I'm going to do things differently than all those people out there that had failed marriages. I'm going to do things differently than everyone. We're gonna get married. We're gonna live 100% by the Deen, and we're gonna live happily ever after. And of course, the moment you get started with the proposal, the engagement, and things like that, it is completely different than
Yeah.
you would have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, like I said, things are going to be different with me because alhamdulillah I'm following the Deen as best as I can, and whenever you follow the Sunnah, there can't possibly be any problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think just because you're trying to emulate the Sunnah as best as possible, and then you think also if your wife is trying to do the same thing, there can't possibly be any problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that right there is the biggest misconception. That just because I'm trying to follow the Sunnah and my wife is trying to follow the Sunnah, there aren't going to be any problems. Even as you know, the Sahaba, they disagreed a lot amongst each other, even though they were the best of Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think first and foremost, we need to accept that there will be disagreements, there will be some confusion and some things that need to be worked out. And I think that's what I wasn't ready for. I thought everything was going to be roses and all that stuff.
Okay, give me one example of something that you thought, oh, this is going to be easy, but then all of a sudden you found that you had issues with it.
So a quick one that comes to mind, and this probably I'm guessing is a sticky point for a lot of couples or potential couples to be, was the meher or the dowry. I thought, I'm going to propose an amount, and I'm going to propose an amount that's according to the Sunnah, whatever the Prophet ﷺ
Yeah.
proposed for his meher, and of course they're going to accept because it's according to the Sunnah. But before you realize it, the world doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
They come up with their own reasoning, their own set of arguments, and say, well, times are different, or you have to adapt. You cannot just because the Prophet ﷺ paid zakah and dates doesn't mean we pay zakah today.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you're approached with these these points, it makes you really understand that subhanallah, there is a lot of room for disagreement. There's a lot of reasons for disagreement, and some of them are valid and some of them may not be. But everyone is different. Everyone sees things differently, and everyone was raised in a different place. Even if you're raised in the same place, in the same country, by parents who are from the same place, you're still going to have different lifestyles. You're still going to be different people. And that, I think, is what people need to understand, that you're never, ever going to agree on everything, especially from the outset when you're learning who you are and who the other person is. And so I think that the meher was it stuck out. I was just expecting it to be so easy, like a 5-minute discussion, and it was not. It was way longer.
Wow, subhanallah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, next point that I'm going to ask is something that is I guess you could say, a very commonly discussed topic amongst people ask imams this question. People ask each other this question as well, and we'll ask that question right after we take a break. We'll see you in a second. We're back. This is Brother Q with the Muslim Marriage Experience, and I'm about to ask that one major question that is discussed, widely amongst the immigrant Muslim community, and that is, we have, I guess, a lot of us that were born here in America, we feel that it's okay to marry someone from a different culture. So, for example, I'm Nigerian. Many Nigerians I know, don't mind marrying someone, that's non-Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times our parents don't feel like that. So you married someone that was from your culture. She's from Lebanon, and you're also from Lebanon.
Correct.
Do you
Originally.
originally? Okay. Do you feel that that made it easier? That made the process before marriage and after marriage was that made easier because you married someone from your same country?
That's a good question. So I'm probably not going to give an answer that you'd like or that your audience would like, but my answer is yes and no. So yes, in the sense that there are potential complications. With that, it goes without saying, but there are potential complications whenever you choose to marry someone from a different culture. It's just common sense. It makes sense. But no, in the sense that kind of again, just what I said before, there's still going to be disagreements no matter what. There's still going to be those things that your parents want for you and her parents want for her, and it's again that goes back to the me being naive about marriage as well, because I thought again that I'm going to marry someone who's from the same background as me, and so everything's going to be all roses and peaches and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the case, because I realized very quickly that they had different lifestyles, they had different views about things. Subhanallah, the deen has different interpretations, and we have different scholars. We have four madhab, and that's amongst the most learned of people. So what about people such as us? We're going to have even more different ways
Mm-hmm.
of seeing things and interpreting things, even people from the same culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, yes, it could be easier, but at the same time, don't think it's going to be easy, in the sense that there are going to be no disagreements and no issues, because there absolutely will be. And I think it's kind of like a rite of passage. I see this as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, showing us and showing me that, you wanted to get married, so prove that you were able to get married. And so by getting through those disagreements, in a way, I felt that I was proving that I was mature enough to get married.
Mm.
Because if you can't work out the disagreements, or the issues that require agreement before marriage, then you shouldn't be getting married.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you are able to successfully negotiate, however you want to call it, there's different ways of calling it. If you're able to successfully meet each other, get to know each other, agree on how you want to live together in the future, and work out any potential disagreements that may come from that discussion, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kind of saying, you are now, you now have the credibility, or you now have, I guess, quote unquote, passed the test,
Mm-hmm.
and you are worthy of getting married. But if you can't pass those, then maybe you shouldn't get married. And at the same time, similarly, if there are no issues at all, then, and you don't have to struggle or work or earn, that marriage bond that both of you are going after, then you're not aware of any potential issues that may come after you get married.
Mm.
So, for example, whenever you're working out issues with amongst the parents, you learn a lot about the parents. So that may tell you, well, we learned a lot about the parents from this side or from that side, and those learnings may actually tell you whether you should get married or not. And at the same time, if you do continue to get married, you still learned a lot, in the sense that, okay, now I know how her parents think. Now I know how her parents work. And so that actually is something that you can take and learn to have a successful marriage. So now I know better how to deal with her parents. And now she knows more how I think and how I operate. So you go into the marriage with a better understanding of each other because of those disagreements.
Exactly. Okay. One thing that I like that you said was towards the beginning was talking about, you know, basically, just to summarize in my own words, you know, the conflicts that you have before you get married, during the engagement phase, will help you also to become a more mature person. Because I was actually on listening to a famous imam. He was doing a webinar on marriage, and someone asked the question, what do you do if you're like, what do you do if you're afraid to talk to your parents? You have a girl in mind or something, and you're afraid to talk to your parents. He said, well, you're just not ready for marriage, because marriage isn't just about running off to the movies and eloping and all this other stuff that you see in the movies that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's when you get married, you're not. It's not just you and your spouse. Number one, it's you and your spouse, and then both your families as well.
Absolutely.
And plus, then when you have children, she her parents raised her children, raised her and her siblings in a different way. Your parents raised you and your siblings in a different way. So that's also going to be different things that cause conflict,
Mm-hmm.
right? And part of marriage is to, part of being a part of someone else's family is to respectfully disagree and come up to some sort of alternative. And don't
Exactly.
just also be one last thing. Don't just think that my parents always do things the right way. Everyone brings ignorance and foolishness. Excuse me, foolishness and wisdom. That's what everyone brings. Wisdom and foolishness to the marriage. So some things my family do are good, and some things my spouse's family do they're good. So what, your marriage should be a combination of the good things from both
Mm-hmm.
people's families.
Mm-hmm.
So last question I have. Um, there's a lot of things that you could give, lots of pieces of advice you could give to someone who wants to get married. Give me one piece of advice. People who are looking to get married, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Good question again. So I think that, and people aren't gonna like this answer, but I think that the one or the biggest mistake that people tend to make, I see, when people ask me for advice, or when I see people trying to get married, the biggest mistake that I see is that they don't listen to their parents. And I understand that sometimes you're head over heels for someone, but there is no person, or there are no people in this world that are going to have your back and look out for you more than your parents. It doesn't matter how much you think your spouse or your potential spouse loves you. There is no one that is going to look out for your back and look out for your interests better than your own parents. So people find it sometimes hard to listen to the advice and the wisdom of their parents whenever they want to get married, because it's often in disagreement. They want to go this way, their parents want them to go that way. They want to marry this person, their parents want them to marry that person. Now I'm not saying throw your own opinions out the door and go straight for whatever your parents want. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying is that try to get the approval of your parents and the blessings of your parents whenever you do want to marry someone. And I find that so important, not just from a practical standpoint, but from an Islamic standpoint too. Because, from a practical standpoint, whenever you do get the approval of your parents, they are, like I said, looking out for you. So they are confident and comfortable with who you're marrying. And trust me, they are going to study that person like like nothing else. They are going to make sure that that person, their background, their family is suitable and compatible to you, because they have spent a good portion of their entire life, a good portion, often 22, 25, sometimes 30 years trying to raise you and protect you. And I have two kids myself, and I know this, that literally not a day goes by in their life that they are thinking about you and looking out for you. And so when it comes to this final step, they're not just going to toss in the towel. They're going to look out for you until the very last moment. And for them to give their blessing to someone that they are allowing you to marry is huge. So if you can get that blessing, that is a very good sign that that person that you want to marry is good for you, because they look out for you. Another issue, and kind of another common, thing about this is that when people sometimes want to get married and their parents disagree, and people get upset, why are my parents not allowing me, why are my parents disagreeing, not only do they have your best interest in mind, but they've also been through life. They've been through a lot of hurdles in life that you don't know about. We think we know our parents well, but they have a lot more wisdom than us. As we know from the Quran, wisdom comes from age, and they are usually significantly older than us. And because of that, it's just a simple matter of wisdom and life experience. They know more about us than life. So, for example, when I wanted to get married, my parents saw things in my wife and in my family, in my wife's family, that I did not see at all. I mean, I thought I had a good analysis of the situation, but they were thinking way ahead. They were thinking, I mean, like I said, like years ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. Alhamdulillah, they approved of my marriage and everything. but they basically hashed out some maybe concerns or some things that were worth discussing further. And it was amazing because when they saw those things, or when they wanted me to kind of look at those things more, I was so confused. I didn't understand. Why are they worried about that? I'm focused on X, Y, and Z, and they're looking at M and Q, and it didn't make any sense to me. And subhanallah, only years later did I understand why they wanted me to focus on those issues that I hadn't really even considered. And that comes with wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think wisdom is an issue. We don't give our parents enough credit in terms of wisdom. Also, they are going to look out for us more than absolutely anyone on the face of this earth. There's no question about it. And then lastly, why this is so important, because from an Islamic standpoint, parents are someone that you need to please in this life. We know that. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that Jannah is at your mother's feet. We want to get into Jannah, please your parents. It's one of the most noble deeds we can do. And so what greater deed can you do than to get the blessing and the happiness and the joy of your parents when they are sending you off to get married? And think about the opposite of that. Imagine that if you marry someone that your parents reject, they disapprove of, they are not comfortable with. Think about every moment of their life after you get married. They're going to have something in their heart that is a small piece of darkness towards whatever lifestyle you choose, or whatever situation you're in for the rest of your life. Whenever they visit you, whenever they think about you, it's always going to be there, and they're going to be sad. And why would you bring about that sadness on your parents for the rest of your life, or as long as you're married to that person? It makes no sense, because subhanallah, if you want to live a good life, then obtain the blessings. And this is an Islamic concept too. If you want a good life, if you want a happy life, then your parents have to be pleased with you. Mm-hmm. And what better way to please them, and what more way to not please them than to marry someone that they either approve or don't approve of? It just seems so clear to me, but I feel like people are usually lost and head over heels in love, that they don't see that until it's too late. And lastly, one quick thing too, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ways of blocking or prohibiting you getting married to someone. So if someone is not right for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may prohibit you from marrying that person through your parents. It may not just be they find someone else to marry, or something else along those lines, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may be prohibiting you through them. And so we just have to remember the master plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sometimes things are for the best and we don't see that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may take us away from someone through our parents. So jazakumullah khairan.
All right, thank you. So one thing I'd like to mention is that I understand that his view is, I guess, leaning towards one side, to the side of, listen to your parents. There are plenty of other people that we both know personally whose view is to, don't listen to your parents as much as he was just, recommending. This is a very big topic. I don't want anybody to think that this is all I'm going to be saying the entire time. Listen to your parents, and, never go against them. We're going to bring other people on who might have a slightly different view, ask them what their opinions are, so we can develop a more complex opinion about the issue. If you have any other questions about what the things that we've covered here, or any questions about marriage in general, please leave them in the comments below. And so we're out of time. Thank you, Muhammad, for being with us today. And we'll see you next time on Muslim Marriage Experience. This is Brother Q. Assalamu alaikum.